Good morning. My name is Taylor Chadwick, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of this congregation. Welcome to all of you. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart is a welcoming community encouraging religious freedom, nurturing individual, spiritual, and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, and promoting a just and sustainable world. If you would like to learn more about this fellowship, please look at our website at uufe.org and join us for after the service for our coffee hour. For the listening enjoyment of all, we ask you at this time to please turn off all cell phones. Also, if you need hearing support, please ask for help at the sound desk. Science and Society group will begin again on August the 2nd and the 4th, Tuesday at 2 p.m. Join us on August 13th to begin a 6-part PBS series on a brief history of the future. Call Ken Claiborne with questions and see the August focus for more details. If interested, please remember to sign up for the defibrillator training on Ivy Island. We need at least 6 to 8 people trained on this device to to make it effective. For recent new members of the UUFE that have signed the membership book and others interested in UUFE histories and traditions, mark September 14th and September 21st for the late morning classes sponsored by the membership committee. Contacting Annette Long for more details. See the cover of the August Focus for the detailed announcement. Oh, also UUFE volunteer sheet will be passed during the service.
There's another announcement on there in the Bible for next Sunday.
Next Sunday, the Social Justice Committee, are they meeting?
You need the vote.
Oh, that's the one,
I didn't realize she was supposed to say that. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, this, read that.
All right. That was my bad.
If you'd like to learn about being part of writing and sending out nonpartisan letters to swing state Michigan citizens, encouraging them to vote, join us back in the gathering space after the next service.
Next week.
Next week.
Good morning. I'm Joan Claiborne, and I am the worship associate this Sunday. Here in Elkhart, Indiana, we reside on the original indigenous land of the Potawatomi and Miami men. Occasionally, it's a good thing to remind ourselves of that. We ring the gong 3 times. Once for those who came before us and made a place for us. Once for those of us who are lucky to be here now. And once for those who will come after us and build on the dream. The chalice lighting today is from David Hobson. I grow plants for many reasons, to please my eye or to please my soul, to challenge the elements or to challenge my patience, for novelty or for nostalgia, but mostly for the joy in seeing them grow. Now, if you will join with me in our unison covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. And now the children are excused to go to the religious education classes. Both hymns this morning are relatively new. The first one we haven't sung before, but it's not too hard and it seemed appropriate for today's message. So Lizzie will be playing it through one time before we start singing. And the second one, which is also appropriate for today's message, has only been played once before that I am aware of, and so Lizzie will play that one through once before we start singing too, I think. Steve, if you'll be willing to lead us, thank you.
Yeah, turn if you will to 66. These will be coming back to back. We'll sing one and then do the offering and then sing the second hymn. But hymn number 66, When the Summer Sun is Shining. Stand and sing if you're willing and able. This being the first Sunday of the month, our offering will go to the Sustainability Fund. So give now as you're willing and able. I think we sang this was for her memorial service. Linda Arbogast. We sang this at her memorial service. So 76 in your hymnal, stand and sing if you're willing, and Lizzie will play it through once and then we'll sing it.
I feel I have introduced Reverend Carolyn Gardner Hunt so often that this may not be necessary today, but for those of you who still may not know her, Reverend Hunt is a longtime friend of UUIP and one of our favorite speakers. She's a licensed pastor in the Indiana-Michigan Conference of the Mennonite Church, and she has served at the Prairie Street Mennonite Church. She lives in Elkhart with her husband, Anthony Hunt, who is our station manager at WVPE, our local NPR station. Coincidentally, they met at a public radio station in Kansas, where Carolyn already worked. They have 4 sons, and Carolyn recently shared that their 3rd son will be going to college in just a few days. This morning, we are very happy to welcome Reverend Hunt to our pulpit as she shares her message, Back to the Garden. Carol?
Good morning. Good morning. I can tell that I've been here a lot because you got the microphone nice and low, so you knew I was coming. I confess I don't exactly know the meaning of the song Woodstock that we heard. It was written by Joni Mitchell and performed by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young in the version we heard this morning. And I had that funny video version run so we could see the lyrics, because that's what grabs me. In fact, I have long thought that the song was called We Are Stardust. I thought that until a few weeks ago. Mitchell's lyrics, "We've got to get ourselves back to the garden," remind me every time of Voltaire's Candide. Have you read this odd little book? Some of us had to read it in high school or college. A philosophy teacher or some deep thinker wanted us to read it. So it was written in the 1700s, and it has this naive, innocent character, this good-hearted young man named Candide. And Voltaire and maybe the society were struggling with big issues. And I want to read just like a couple sentences from this introduction and then tell you more about what happens to him in the story. So the editor says, "However much we may try to avoid the problem, we are all confronted at some time with this difficulty, that the Creator has made a universe where suffering abounds. If the Creator is good and all-powerful, as lots of folks were told at that time, could he not have made a better world?" And again, the he is a 1700s, okay. So if this Creator is good and all-powerful, couldn't he have made a better world? If he could, what prevented him? If he could not, can we still believe that this Creator is good and all-powerful? And can we indeed believe in a Creator at all? If we do, can we believe that this God is at all concerned with humans and their sufferings? In times of widespread disasters, such questioning becomes more general and more urgent. And I was interested to learn in looking at this that Voltaire wrote this book after there was this enormous earthquake in Lisbon, Portugal, that killed 50,000 people. And he was always getting exiled from one place or another because he would offend whatever ruler or benefactor he had at the time. So he didn't just live in one place. He was familiar with other parts of Europe. And he was struggling with like what is the purpose of life? What is there a God? Is there a Creator? What good can be happening when things like this natural disaster happen? And so the main character, this young man in the story, Voltaire has him travel all around the world and basically experience or witness every kind of human cruelty and suffering to each other that you can imagine, different religious persecutions and horrible violence, and how the characters survive is really improbable. So, but it's a satire. And he has this idiot teacher named Pangloss who always says, well, we live in the best of all possible worlds. Like everything must be working for the good somewhere. But in the end, having seen all of it, Candide concludes, like his only advice, his thought is, we must cultivate our garden. At the end of this trip around the world, he's seen leaders, and he's been conscripted into war, and he's been in prison, and he's been tortured, and the only thing that makes sense to him is this farmer that they meet at the end of the story, who lives a simple life, and he says that farming cures the three worst evils: boredom, vice, and poverty. I don't know if that's true, but this cultivate our garden, that's what Candide comes to. So every time I hear this song, on the Oldies channel, it brings that up to me. And I was reading a little bit about it. There's this essayist, Adam Gopnik, and he wrote a column in the New Yorker after a tsunami several years ago, and he was thinking about, like, these are the same questions we ask ourselves now when there is violence, war, horrible things that happen that we can't think of a reason or a cause. And Adam said that the force of that last great injunction, because it's the last sentence in the book, it's something that Candide says in the last chapter, and then he just reaffirms it, is that our responsibility is to cultivate our garden. Our responsibility is local and concentrated on immediate action. And reading about what was happening at Voltaire's time, it sounds pretty familiar. Our world exhibits war, pestilence, people displaced, refugees, natural disasters, climate change. So much is out of our control that we can feel powerless to do any good at all for anything. But cultivating our garden, that is within our reach. And I love that as your backdrop here, we have this garden every Sunday, every time that before we can even read, before we can look at philosophy or theology or anything else, we have the natural world. That's like our first book that we learn from. So I want to give you some hyper-local learnings from the plants and animals that are in my backyard. So a couple of animal stories first, and then we're going to go into the plants. Before we had dogs, we used to have a problem with moles in our garden. Well, not the garden, and the grass. This scrubby old lawn. Apparently, we hosted a thriving community of worms and grubs that were very desirable just beneath that spindly grass. And when you looked out from the kids' bedroom windows upstairs, you could see the path the moles had taken throughout the yard. So you could see where the grass was raised, and then it would be punctuated by the little dirt hills where they popped up every few feet. And it really looked like a cartoon. It was so funny. And I looked out again one day, probably after showing this to our children, and I realized I wasn't the only one with a bird's eye view of this situation, because the robins were using the molehills as a roadmap to the most worm-rich spots in the lawn. So, robins will go anywhere. You'll see them around. They're going to dig in your grass, and they're always looking for something to snatch. But these robins were leaving everything else alone. They could see there must be something good along here. They were no slouches. And they would just dig where the soil was already kind of dug up. So the lesson I took from that is that we can coexist. We can work alongside each other. And there's enough worms for everybody. The goldfinches, on the other hand, could learn something from the robins. When the sunflower blooms kind of bow down, when they start to get really heavy as they're forming seeds, and they bow down with their seeds in the summer, the finches begin their acrobatics. And if you're lucky, they'll do them maybe outside your garden door or your window. They hold on, so if you imagine there's this top edge of the disc, they hold on and then they lean upside down. They lean over. they're not like hummingbirds. They're not staying in midair to get at their food. They're hanging on. They lean over, they nip out the seeds, they shell them midair, spit out the shells, and then eat them. And once in a while, a second goldfinch arrives before the first one has gotten full. "Excuse me," the first goldfinch seems to say. "This is my sunflower." You would think they were two little Olympic fencers vying for a medal. There is lunging, and there is poking, and there's squawking. And it's completely unnecessary because there is usually another seed head on the next plant over. The lesson the goldfinches taught me is that a scarcity mindset may blind us to the resources available. A scarcity mindset, if we're worried that somebody else has it all, somebody else has the best bit, we may overlook the resources that are available to us. Now for lessons from plants. You've heard it said that the best things in life are free. Well, many of them are also tedious. I thought you were going to laugh there. I really did. Sorry. So I think of the first step of many recipes. Like if you're going to make pesto in the summer, your first task is you pick every single little leaf off this armload of stems that you've harvested. If you're going to make grape jam, you're going to start out under the bugs, you're going to snip clusters of grapes from the vine, you're going to pick off the cobwebs and the leaves and, I don't know, dirt, bird poop, insect leavings, whatever. And then you will gently pick each grape from the stem so you don't smash them too early. And only then do you have like the jam making part that begins. Well, last year a friend showed me how to find elderberries. And those things are next level. I hear a couple of ums. Who remembers elderberries? I think I thought they were just legend, but these are next level tedious. You're likely to get covered in sticker burrs and bug bites while cavorting in the ditches of the Michiana back roads, because usually where you find them is on some county road or going up Union Road in Michigan. Then once you found them, you cut off the things, you bring the stems home, you're picking these teensy little berries. They're maybe like an eighth of an inch. It's enough to give you hand cramps. And I don't care who says that a comb makes it faster or whatever. Like really, there's lots of ways to do it, but none of them are fast. You're gonna spend some time there. But the reward is an abundance of these tiny fruits that are delicious if you add enough sugar. And they're really nutritious. The friend that told me this is a nurse, I believe her. She says they're high in antioxidants. They're good for something. I don't know. And so last year we had a lot of elderberries, and it won't surprise you that I still have a few jars of elderberry jam and syrup and chutney from last summer. Because once you get into it, it's kind of cool. Well, berries and basil are nice, but they're not exactly your daily bread. You're not going to survive on those. During the first half of 2020, early pandemic days, I remember when our reliance on international and coast-to-coast shipping of food became obvious. You went to the store, the grocery store shelves, they had bare spots, and then there were some things they just didn't stock. I remember being in Aldi where they just had a curtain they pulled down over the meat department shelves for, well, sometimes there isn't anything. And depending on far away food sources, didn't seem so smart anymore. Being willing to eat what grew wild in the yard, that idea had promise. Maybe that's just my trauma response, but to my family's chagrin, I started researching recipes using stinging nettles. Oh, I can tell who goes out in the garden around here. I don't even remember who told me you could eat stinging nettles. Probably the same farmer friend who told me you could make pesto out of invasive garlic mustards. I have not done that yet, but I hear it's good. So I'll let you go down your own internet rabbit hole to read up on the nutrient values of nettles and their many medicinal, culinary, and horticultural uses. Suffice it to say, they're really good for you. When prepared correctly, they taste delicious and they don't sting you. And did I mention they're free? Even when we were locked down and we were encouraged to not travel and, like not shop all the time, just go out a bit, like they were right there on our property. Well, they're free, but they do require suiting up and a day of tedious work. I had accidentally discovered these stinging nettles a few years ago when I was weeding, so I knew that if I was going to get them, I had to wear gloves like the leather kind up and long sleeves, and I added another layer of pants over my shorts. Now, when you look up stinging nettles on YouTube and you see all these videos, those show cheerful Pacific Northwesterners crouching down in the leaf litter in the early spring, and they're just plucking the top few inches of young nettle plants, which they assure you early in the spring they're really not very stingy yet. So some of them are just brave. They don't even wear gloves. Well, if you made a foraging video in my yard, it would show you 8-foot tall mature nettle stems. I'm not joking. They were 8 feet tall. They had been taunting me through the dining room window. They were entwined with forsythia and weedy vines. So getting those tasty leaves was a process. You venture into the wild of the forsythia, you cull the stalks, you haul them out, trim off just the part with leaves, put everything else to the side so people don't get stung. You carefully snip the leaves with fine scissors, still wearing leather gloves, because these are serious mature nettles. They are out to get you. I washed them outside, then I took them inside, I washed them again. Then you blanch them in boiling water and you drain them. And then you can make them into all these different things that are good to eat. Why? My sons ask me this a lot, like pretty much every time I cook with them. Mom, why are you making us eat this? Why do you go to this trouble? Well, a lot of times I have more time than money. So using my own body to harvest nutritious food that just grows on its own, that is a no-brainer. It is right there. I can labor somewhere else to earn money and then take that and go to the store, go to the farmer's market, and I can buy the product of another person's labor, or I can examine my surroundings closely and find what nature has provided. It's literally in my own backyard. Second, the time I spend foraging is good for me. Fresh air, sunshine, and exercise, plus those beneficial bacteria in the soil. There's good research now, and like not just one study, but lots of them, that the certain good bacteria in the soil promote the release of serotonin in your brain, which improves your mood and possibly even your brain function. This is a kind of a side note, but just this morning in the Washington Post, there was an article about how time in nature is good for children, how it builds happier, healthier, and more social children. And, a little clean dirt is good for you. So whether you're older or whether you're little, being out there is a positive thing. And the third thing is that harvesting and eating these wild edibles connects me to the generations before mine who ate these foods, whether they were indigenous peoples or immigrants. John Heckewelder, who was a church worker in rural Pennsylvania in 1756. Why do we know about him? Because he kept a diary, and it stuck around. It got published. You can go read it. And he ate nettles so much that he talked about them in his journal. That, these days we're living mostly upon nettles. They grow abundantly down here in these bottomlands, and sometimes we make 2 meals out of them every day. probably the easiest way, or the way that I looked at a lot of people eat them, is it's like making potato soup, but you throw greens in it. You know, like when you go to Olive Garden and you have their soup that has chopped up kale. It's kind of like that, but it's with nettles. And I puree mine so you can't find the stems. But it's good. Nettles were also an important survival food during times like the Irish potato famine. And this gets my imagination going, like, well, I wonder if my ancestors ate these, and that's what kept them alive long enough that they could emigrate to the US. And then there were times that they didn't have enough, you know, like there was wild food here too that could sustain them, maybe. I have a big imagination, there's nothing wrong with that, but connecting with a plant or something in our natural environment that's on record for a long time, being there, I don't know, it just does something. It makes you, I think some people have ethnic foods or favorite foods that were part of their growing up, and I used to say we had no ethnicity. I think we were English and Irish and Scottish people, but apparently nettles, you know, maybe they were it. It's something simple, but those nettles are perennials. Now, who knows how long they've been growing in my side yard, but long time. Last lesson. Stinging nettles have proven to me that an initial negative encounter with a plant or a person does not have to define my entire relationship with it. I know when I found that plant first by accident, when I thought it was mint and I was pulling it out, that I was ready to eradicate it. Some people and some situations are more prickly than others. They require preparation on my part before I can realize their valuable, positive, even nourishing qualities. As our summer turns to harvest, I hope that you will have a moment this week to, like Candide, cultivate your garden.
Are you willing to answer and comment on some reflections?
Sure.
Okay. Am I on? Yes, I am. I can hear me. Steve?
What a refreshing service. That's got to be your most down-to-earth message you've ever given us.
I can't believe you went there, Steve.
I feel kind of bad because I think I just pulled up a whole bunch of things that could have nourished me. Stinging nettles.
Oh my goodness. The minute you started talking, all I could think of was a metaphorical garden within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And about the fact that we are made up of both positive and negative, mm-hmm. and that perhaps we could harvest those negatives and do something positive with it.
Good point. Yeah.
Anyone? Okay, I'm going to have the last word, and it's kind of going back to the very beginning mm-hmm. about if there is a God, why would he, and if he's omnipotent. Mm-hmm. Have you read Harold Kushner's book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People?
I haven't read it, but I've heard of it, yeah.
Because he had a son who was born with progeria. He's a rabbi, so he's a devout person, but he tried to equate in his mind how an all-loving, omnipotent God could allow things like this to happen. And his conclusion, which kind of helped me along the way, was God set the earth into motion. He is not omnipotent. He had designed laws of physics, laws of nature, that he will not come down and interfere. But he is all-loving. And he's as sad as we are when he sees what happens. And lots of it's our own free will, but that really gave me kind of a comforting thought about having a creator.
Yeah, and I remember studying this book the first time. You get to the end and you're like, what? That's the conclusion? Like is Voltaire just making a metaphor here? And maybe I'm just a literalist, but no, I really think like maybe he really just meant cultivate our gardens. That sometimes when your personal life events or world events are so dire that what is going to get you up in the morning is to go outside and see what is growing. Did those seeds sprout? And that's a universe, like every culture all around, all around the world, we can do that.
Excellent message. Thank you so much. Others? Oh, well, your hand is late. Sorry.
Well, when you were talking, I was thinking of good intentions that lead to bad outcomes. And like building dams, I mean, we built so many of them throughout this country, and a lot of them led to very bad consequences, especially for fish. And many, people rely on fishing as a food source. And so by destroying, the spawning of trout, things, and have, led to very bad consequences. And now we're busy trying to dismantle dams in order to allow, the free flow of water. But anyway, very good sermon. Thank you.
And if you would benedict us,
All
we'll
right.
listen to the post. Thank you, Carol.
All right, this benediction is going to sound familiar. We are stardust. We are golden. We are billion-year-old carbon. And we've got to get ourselves back to the garden. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, with us tonight is one of the good guys of contemporary music, Mr. John Denver. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warn them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Pulling weeds and picking stones, man is made of dreams and bones. Feel the need to grow my own, 'cause the time is close at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, find my way in nature's chain. Tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. Inch by inch, row by row, plant your rows straight and long, temper them with prayer and song. Mother Earth will make you strong if you give her love and care. Old Bro watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree. In my garden I'm as free as that feathered thief up inch by inch, row by row. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warn them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Till the rain comes tumbling down. Inch by inch, row by row.
know something? That was a sweet number.
It sure was.
You know something else?
What?
I hate sweet numbers.